try something here. No, still won't work. Okay. Try it a little different. Okay. My name's Moshe. I live in Israel, the Galilee. Today is the 6th of May. It's 10:34 in the morning. 67 degrees, and we had a lot of rain last night in the early morning, basically, and I mean a lot. That's for my people yet to come. Jubilee year, Yovel year. Very unusual, and we're going to have more rain in the afternoon. I mean, it wasn't a little bit of rain. It was a pretty substantial rain. Okay. Let me go into the chat, make sure we got sound and picture and all of that stuff. Okay. Let me go into the chat, make sure we got sound and picture. I gotta shut it off. Okay. Please don't post in the chat for a couple of minutes so I can get my posts up there. It was cold last night before the rain came. Now it's starting to warm up, but it's going to continue to rain again. I might have to run out and grab the dogs when it starts raining, but that's pretty quick. I don't want them to get rained on. They don't either. Right now they're very happy sitting outside. All right. Let's set the stage here for what I'm going to show you in Bible prophecy, which is going to be shocking, but I'm going to have the verses for you, okay? I'm starving. I'm eating a little pretzel. I didn't eat since yesterday evening, and usually I snack late in the evening later, but I didn't, so. Okay. The U.S. is going crazy to try to stop us from invading Rafah. The CIA director's flying back and forth to Qatar, and he's walking out because it's not going anywhere. And the United States said they'd give some guarantees to Hamas, which I think run like this. They give Israel 33 hostages. Israel will give them probably 330 to 800 or 900, because that's how these idiots push Israel around from terrorists in jail. And Israel wants to give them a 6-week ceasefire and then continue the war. Biden is telling them if Israel stops the war for 6 weeks, it won't start up again. So Hamas wants guarantees. America said they would give them a guarantee. but it wasn't specific. But any such guarantee has to require military force. So America would have to put soldiers in Gaza. Now, this temporary pier thing that Biden did, which Netanyahu just immediately agreed to, very suspicious. Think back to October 7th, Netanyahu visiting Biden on September 20th. A little more than 2 weeks later, boom. Don't forget that. So, Netanyahu doesn't take issue with it. Neither does all his cronies in the military. It had no technical reason. Gaza, the Hamas people hijacked the food, attacked the people trying to get the food before it goes to the UNWRA warehouse, which Hamas controls. They shoot at the people, they beat them, they do all sorts of stuff. Gaza at this time is flooded with food. The people are selling it in the open markets dirt cheap, and I mean dirt cheap because they're afraid it's going to go bad. They don't have refrigeration, I believe, because of the electricity outages. And they're not living in their houses, so combine it, and there's not much refrigeration. To open a store in Gaza, you're going to need the permission of Hamas through their government, or you're not going to have a store. So they're making money off of it. Hamas just robbed the banks in Gaza the other day that are run by the Palestinian Authority, Mahmoud Abbas, who they have no use for. And I understand they robbed $70 million. It would be in Israeli shekels. That could be to provide pocket money for those in Hamas that are high-ranking enough, not necessarily the generals, maybe majors and colonels and things like that, to get out through Egypt, which can be done. And then they would have money to live for a while, years, They might give them each $250,000 or $500,000 or something like that. Maybe $100,000. $100,000 in Egypt's going to get you, 4 or 5 years anyway. $500,000, you live lavishly for several years. I think with $1 million in Egypt, you get yourself set up. Cash out a car, furniture, a house, and just live off the interest, which is probably significant in Egypt. Okay, so Netanyahu says there's no way we're stopping the war. We'll give them 6 weeks. The Houthis said, if there is a ceasefire, we'll respect it and we'll stop our attacks on the shipping. They're not that successful with their attacks on the shipping, but they're very successful in deterring shipping companies from sending their ships through the Red Sea or the Sea of Aden underneath Yemen to the south. Egypt is losing a massive amount of revenue from the Red Sea tolls, which is extremely important to their economy. So Hamas is scared that they're going to be attacked in Rafah. I think the deadline's over Thursday or Friday. And many of them are going to stand trial for the atrocities of October 7th. A lot of them probably have gold, silver, cash, jewelry, gems, and they're going to lose all that. They might get to spend the rest of their life in jail and all these problems. So they've been playing the political angles. Now, what they did do, I think, yesterday, they hit Kareem Sharon, which is a crossing near Rafah, where they are, and they shot rockets from Rafah to this crossing, which was recently opened up by Israel to allow humanitarian aid in. Now, what you need to understand about humanitarian aid, I don't care how you bring it in. You could airdrop it on the beach. You could bring boats and put it on the pier. The way you get the product to the people is by truck. So they accomplished very little, if anything, by that pier. Nothing, basically. Because they were running unlimited amount of trucks through Egypt. Egypt didn't care how many trucks they sent in every day, neither did Israel. So the pier doesn't serve a meaningful purpose. With the trucks, they were able to flood Gaza with food and other aid. So the pier is a solution to a non-existent problem. So why did America put the pier there? Well, the other day, I think 4 or 5 days ago, Congressman was grilling the Secretary of Defense, and he said, you're going to put 1,000 soldiers there. Why? Well, to protect the pier and stuff like that. Well, if these soldiers, do they have guns? He says, yes, they're armed. He says, if they get fired on, can they return fire? He said, yes, they're allowed to shoot back, return fire, protect themselves. Okay. So the congressman started drilling down on them and asked him what the heck was going on, and he was extremely evasive. Now, Hamas already attacked the pier, and they used, I believe, mortars. So when they attack the pier, they'll use mortars, Katyushas, shoulder-fired anti-tank weapons, rockets, missiles, that kind of thing. Are they going to sit there and shoot them with rifles? It's possible. If they did, they would try to shoot at them from a distance behind cover, like buildings and things like that. Not empty, vacant buildings, buildings occupied with civilians. So the Americans won't return fire. If they're getting hit with mortars and missiles or shoulder-fired rockets and all this stuff, the Americans are going to take cover, which could be just to lay down on the floor, run and hide behind containers. They're not going to put a bunker on a pier. It'd be too much weight and space. So the pier should be full of, containers, metal containers, which will provide rather adequate protection from shrapnel, not a direct hit in between the containers or something like that. Okay, now this pier is a temporary pier that floats on the water. Now, what do you think will happen to it when it gets hit by anti-tank missiles, mortars, and rockets? Well, it's going to break apart, water's going to come in, it's not going to be considered safe. Well, that's what's going to happen. The pier was temporarily taken up to Ashdod for some work, and they're bringing it back, I don't know what day, but any day now they're going to bring it back. Now, this is where we're headed. And this you're not going to get out of the mainstream news so easily, but it's real. Hamas said that America offered them a guarantee that if we had this ceasefire for 6 weeks, the war wouldn't start up again. And whether or not the troops would leave Gaza, I don't know. Because they're not telling us exactly what's going on in the negotiations. One of the conditions Hamas wants is the end of the blockade. And I'll explain. That means that goods could come in to Gaza. Like what? Bananas, pineapples, Iranian missiles, guns, tanks, armored personnel carriers, even helicopters. You got it? That's one of their conditions. So they don't have a pier. So to meet this condition, Joe Biden built them a temporary pier real quick, which would work. So if this is part of the ceasefire, ships pull up from Iran and other countries, Turkey, you name it, right? And they offload missiles, rockets, everything. So in a matter of a month or so, Hamas could rebuild a large inventory of missiles and have better missiles. They could get anti-aircraft systems. They could get artillery pieces, tunnel making supplies, radar, intelligence equipment, anything. Satan's countries would be more than happy to bring him in. Who are Satan's countries? Every country in the world. He's the God of this world, not for long, but today he is. Every nation's leaders in the world, every single one, no exception, not even where I'm sitting, is serving him. They tell you one thing, we're Christians, we're Jewish, and watch their actions. Do they follow God? Do they obey God's commandments, or are they completely gone? They're gone. The only thing they have to do with God is to give him lip service. They don't pay attention to him. Now, Hamas says, well, we don't trust the Americans. In other words, Biden has gotten such a bad reputation as a do-nothing idiot that they don't think America would really do anything against Israel. So they're now attempting to enlist China, Turkey, and Russia to get them to guarantee the ceasefire never resumes into a war. The only way you're really going to do that is to put troops in there. Or you could threaten Israel and say, if you resume the war, we're going to come down here and attack you, which they're not going to say. So what they'd have to do is put soldiers in there as a deterrent in the thousands with equipment. I know Russia would be happy to do it, and Turkey would be happy to do it. And China is a wild card in everything. But we did find Chinese weapons all over the place in Gaza. And we found Chinese nationals from the military and intelligence service were captured in Gaza too. So the chances of China doing something like this in the name of peace and genocide, elimination and stuff like that, and humanitarian aid is extremely high. Because China will flavor it like they're really good people. And I don't think they're going to send like 500 soldiers. I think you're going to see them, probably can collectively come up with 10 or 15,000 soldiers. And they'll have some tanks and things like that. They got to protect themselves from Hamas. Now, can America be there with China and Russia? With Turkey, yes, they're both in NATO. With China and Russia, then no. American troops can't work that way. There's a possibility that's quite high that now all this stuff is probably going to happen before Thursday or Friday. And that's why Hamas is hanging on to these negotiations. Not that they ever expect to get what they want from Israel. They expect what they want from Russia, Turkey, and China, and maybe America. So the formation of an international peacekeeping force would be what they would come up with without the UN. And the UK would probably contribute. France likely would contribute. And who else, I don't know. I really don't know. So they're in Gaza and then missiles come flying out of Gaza, and Israel calls these peacekeeping troops up on the phone and said, "What the heck are you doing there? We don't know what happened yet." And then they, grill Hamas and they say, "Well, it was some wild terrorist that found some missiles, and we can't be responsible for that." So America, Russia, China, Turkey say, "Yeah, we understand. Try harder." "Oh, sure, we will. We will." Right? Okay. And then it keeps happening. And with the troops there, they could open up the pier for the end of the so-called embargo on Gaza, and all kinds of weapons from Iran would come in. Dangerous weapons. Plus troops from Hezbollah, from the Houthis, they would start coming in on ships. They could land on the pier and walk in, it's not hard, right? So this looks like it's something that'll happen, but how does it play? See, Netanyahu's going to keep insisting, no, we don't want this. We're not leaving Gaza. We don't care if there's no ceasefire. Then the other countries say, yeah, but we do. The Houthis are disrupting our shipping. Iran is threatening everybody. Biden's going to think, oh man, I'm going to have the sleeper. If I don't get in on this bandwagon, the sleeper agents are going to get unleashed in America. And, Biden will do it. He'll try to do it without them, but I think he may try to find a way to do it with them or walk out. I don't think he's going to walk away. He's going to try to do it too. So they would have an American base in Gaza, probably by the pier. Then Russia would put a base in, say, up in the north. China would put a base in, say, in the south. Turkey would put a base in the central. So they'd have separate bases. Now, they might just tell Israel, openly or quietly, that the reality of this is we're sending troops in, and we gave Hamas a guarantee that the war is over, and you end it. We're going to force it. We're going to make it happen by force if you don't. And then, he's going to, I don't know what he'll do. Probably go for it, because he let Biden put the pier in without any objections when it popped up. So he's in on it. Why would a real general defender of Israel let something like that happen? They wouldn't. See, America with the troops there is in charge of the pier. So if Turkey wants to send 3 or 4 ships down there with what he's going to call humanitarian aid, it's not going to be searched by the Americans. It's going to be containers full of weapons, missiles, rockets, shoulder-fired rockets, mortars, artillery, machine guns, hand grenades, you name it. The Americans will just offload it and give it to Hamas. So are they going to stop because Israel doesn't agree to Hamas's terms? Or are they going to push forward? Now ask yourself what Satan will do, what Satan wants, because Satan's scared to death. He knows the timing is very bad for him, and he doesn't care how many nations get destroyed on his sake and the sake of the fallen demons. He doesn't care. He doesn't care. So he'll cause them to rise up. They think he's a god, they worship him, they'll listen to him. And they'll rise up and force this on Israel, which Israel's not going to stand for, because it'll be a matter of days and Israel's going to realize that they're attacking us and shooting missiles and rockets and doing infiltrations and everything else, and this peacekeeping force doesn't do a darn thing. or they just refuse to let it happen and they start attacking Israel. Part of the siege on Israel will come from Gaza, of course. Of course, there's a border. And this is very real, and I can't give you a written guarantee how it's going to evolve for sure, but it's very dangerous. And, United States, Turkey, China, and Russia are likely to have an increase in a few other countries. UK would go with America. Who else? I don't know. Don't know who's going to join, but they don't need more than that. All right, let me do my praise. I don't think I did that. There is no God like Jehovah. 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 There is no Messiah like Yeshua. 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 Let's see what's in the chat and then we'll move on. Told you I'd get the chat back. I did. Now, if you guys want to get more news updates, make sure you subscribe. And if you're interested in getting the emergency updates when the eggs start hitting the fan, make sure you subscribe and click the notifications bell. Because when serious things happen, I do unannounced live streams at odd times of the day and night. And you'll get to notice and know that. And I usually beat the mainstream media by 8 to 12 hours. So if this is of interest to you, that's what I would suggest you do. Okay? All right. We'll move forward here. Got my notes. I don't have any prayer requests today. So let me explain to you what I'm doing today, which you'll find shocking, okay? But it's coming out of Scripture. Jeremiah 30, verse 11. Now you have to remember Jeremiah 30 is tied to the birth of a nation in a day and the birth pangs. Okay? We'll read in Jeremiah 30:14. It says, "All thy lovers have forgotten thee. They seek thee not, for I have wounded thee with the wound of an enemy, with the chastisement of a cruel one, for the multitude of thy lawlessness, because thy sins were increased." So you got to bear that in mind, and we're going to cover scriptures very similar to that. Verse 5 of Jeremiah 34, "Thus saith Jehovah, we have heard a voice of trembling, of fear, and not of peace." So all this churchianity garbage, the man of sin, speaking peace, it's not for now. It's way, way down the road. Probably 60, 70 years from now, or almost 70 years anyway. "Ask you now and see whether a man doth travail with child. Wherefore do I see every man with his hands on his loins as a woman in travail, and all faces are turned into paleness." So the men are clutching their guts and their faces are turning pale. They're very scared. Alas, for that day is great, so that none is like it. It is even the time of Jacob's trouble, but he shall be saved out of it. Now, this day is like no other day. This day is going to surpass Gog and Magog, which is 60 something years down the road. Because Daniel 9:24 does not say 70 weeks. Every single Hebrew manuscript I could ever find says 70. So there's two 70s on Israel and Jerusalem. And the first one was the Babylonian captivity, which was 70 years. And the second one begins when the nation is born in a day, which is the appearing of Yeshua in the clouds, the sign of the Son of Man seated on the right hand of power, appearing like the lightning from the east to the west. Okay. For it shall come to pass in that day, saith Jehovah of armies, that I will break his yoke from off thy neck, and will burst thy bonds, and strangers shall no more serve themselves of him. Okay. So what we read in verse 11 is the key. For I am with thee, saith Jehovah, to save thee. Though I make a full end of all nations whither I have scattered thee, yet I will not make a full end of thee, but I will correct thee in measure, and will not leave thee altogether unpunished. So, altogether unpunished would mean not punished, or some get corrected and others are punished pretty badly. I'll not leave all of you unpunished, some will not. Remember, it says in Zechariah 13, verse 8 and 9, that 2/3 of Israel is going to get cut off. That's 66%. 66.6%. Okay, so if I was going to put that in a number, I'll tell you what it breaks to. If you say roughly we got 9 million people in Israel, counting the Arabs and Bedouins and all of that, times point, we'll just go 6.6. That means 5.9 million get cut off. And you're looking at the next few weeks on this, maybe a couple of months. You're not looking at years, believe me. Not years. Okay? So, you're going to have 3-point-something million people left in Israel. Why does he cut off the nations he scattered the Israelites into? Well, that's almost every nation in the UN. It's got to be 100, 125 nations. It's all in North, Central, South America, everything in Europe, much, if not all, of the Middle East, a lot of Asia, and parts of Africa. It's huge. They're cut off. Their cities are destroyed. You'll read this today. I'll read it in other verses. The cities are destroyed. They're devastated. You can't live in them anymore. That's why they come to Israel, and they are more than happy to work as our slaves of service to live here. And they bring the Israelite children or adults in as an offering unto the Lord, plus wealth and riches. They got nowhere to live. They're all going in Exodus because they put the Israelites in Exodus. The Israelites lived in Russia, they got driven out. Lived in England, they got driven out. Lived in Spain, they got driven out. Portugal, they got driven out. Wherever they went, Germany, Austria, driven out. They kept getting driven out. Okay? That's a lot of people. Now, The reason he's doing this is, for one, because what they did to the Israelites. They went to live there, and then they got persecuted, punished, killed, had their goods taken away, thrown out, everything. During this 2,000-year punishment in Hosea 6:1 and 2. Now, God's very big on you reap what you sow. So we see what happens to the nations on that day. Zechariah 12 day, the appearing of the Son of Man in the clouds, seated on the right hand of power. They're destroyed. I believe all this stuff's going to happen in one day, because it keeps saying that day, that day. Don't sell Jehovah short, because you can't imagine how he could do it. But he can. And he's got many millions of angels to help him. And he's got his spirit. So let's not worry about Jehovah getting it done. He can get it done in a day, in an hour, in a minute, whatever. All things work to good for those who love the Lord. You got to remember that. You also got to remember, not by might, not by power, but by my spirit. Not by force, not by armies, but by his spirit. Israel right now is running on their army. Israel's running based on their military. F-35s, rockets, missiles, Iron Dome, David's sling, arrow, and all this stuff. Okay? They're doing it wrong, and that's going to stop. Why are they doing it wrong? Because they're in the world and of the world, these leaders, and they're serving the unclean spirits, and that's what the problem is. That's October 7th. That's why the pier was put up. You got it? Now, God knows this. I know it. He knows it. Don't worry about it. He showed it to me. So what's going on? The nations are reaping what they sow. They're destroying. They come and destroy the cities in Israel. That's why that happens to them. He's a just God. In the past, they didn't all come and destroy the cities of Israel. The Babylonians did. The Romans did. Assyria. But all the nations never came and did it. But now it's different. They're all going to be destroyed. Not that they have to come to the war here, but they'll support in the UN or with NATO. They'll be behind this movement. They certainly won't object to it. And they're going to be destroyed. But before that, you're going to see the Israel cities be destroyed. Now, just to make some people say, well, Jeremiah 30, you know, okay, let's read it again in Jeremiah 46, verse 28. It's almost the same verbatim, just about. I read, fear thou not, O Yaakov, my servant. Now, Yaakov can mean the 12 tribes, but it also means the good one. His name was changed to Israel. Okay, Yaakov, my servant, saith Jehovah. For I am with thee, for I will make thee a full end. I will make a full end of all the nations whither I have driven thee. But I will not make a full end of thee, but correct thee in measure. Yet will I not leave thee wholly unpunished. So some are going to be punished, and the country is. Okay, so the reason he's going to make a full end of all these nations is they made a full end of the cities of Israel, or they were supporting countries that did. Okay, so this is almost the same thing in Isaiah 46:28. Now we need to find scriptures showing us the destruction of the cities. Well, I took notes and I have them. Let's go through Micah 5. Here I think I'll read the whole passage. Other scriptures I may not. Now gather Micah 5 verse 1. Now gather thyself in troops, O daughter of troops. He hath laid siege against us. That's Zechariah 12, the siege surrounding. They shall smite the judge of Israel, the governor. This is Netanyahu right now. With a rod upon his cheek. But that's not exactly killing him. It's insulting him, I guess, and mocking him. But thou, Bethlehem, that's Bethlehem, house of bread, that's where Yeshua was coming from, the bread of life, right? Ephratah, though thou be little among the thousands of Jordan, yet out of thee shall come forth unto me what is to be ruler, that is to be ruler in Israel, whose goings forth have been of old from the everlasting, okay. Therefore will he give them up until the time that she which travaileth hath brought forth. He gives us up until the birth of a nation in a day, back in Jeremiah 30. Which is the appearing of the sign of the Son of Man. Before that happens, in Zechariah 12, verse 10, he pours his Spirit out on those in Jerusalem and the house of David. So it's worthy of note that apparently the Israelis at that time aren't living all over the land of Israel like they are today. File that away for later today. So, once the sign of Son of Man appears and they see him, when you see him, you shall be like him. That's, I think, 1 John 3:2, I think. And you also find it in John 6:40, I'm positive on this one. Those that believe and look upon him, speaking of the one whom they appear, speaking of Yeshua, will have everlasting life. And that happens right then and there. Everlasting life is not living to eternity. You could still die. But you live like my people's days shall be like that of a tree. Thousands of years. It says they shall walk but not get tired. Even a child gets tired, but they don't. You'll be very different. You'll have great strength, stamina, endurance. You'll probably have the mind of the Lord, Yeshua. And you probably have, all kinds of wonderful things going on. Travaileth okay, so therefore will he give them up, Israel, until the time, that means Hosea 6:1 and 2. That means that Hosea 6:1 and 2 is over when we have the appearing of the sign of the Son of Man in the clouds, seated on the right hand of power. That's when it's over. That's when the second 70 years of Daniel begins, Daniel 9:24. That she which travaileth hath brought forth, then the remnant of his brethren shall return unto the children of Israel. After that comes the next great Exodus. And he shall stand and feed in the strength of the Lord, in the majesty of the name of the Lord his God. And they shall abide for now, shall he be great unto the ends of the earth. Now, the word for great is gadol, which means high or great. Not high like let's get high, no, great unto the ends of the earth. Well, you're going to have this eternal life. You're going to be way more attractive looking, and you're going to be like nobody's ever seen. Maybe the people before the flood had something like this going on, but I doubt as good as what we're going to have. I seriously doubt it, because he says we'll have a double portion. And this man shall be the peace when the Assyrians shall come into our land. And it could be the Iranian types. Up from there would be a geographically okay fit. And when he shall tread in our palaces, then we shall raise up against him 7 shepherds and 8 principal men. It might also be able to include parts of Turkey and Russia. You got to look at maps, and they're very hard to take these ancient empires and flip them into the names of the modern countries. But it could be them too. And they shall waste the land of Assyria with the sword. Well, that would, I assume, be us. And the land of Nimrod, that's Iraq, in the entrances thereof. Thus shall he deliver us from the Assyrian into our land, and when he treadeth within our borders, that would be the Lord, or oh no, it could be the Assyrian. And the remnant of Yaakov shall be in the midst of many people, as a dew from Jehovah, as the showers upon the grass, that tarrieth not for man, nor waiteth for the sons of men. The Yaakov, I think, really means the seed, the believers. And the remnant from non-Israelite and Israelite. And the remnant of Yaakov shall be among the heathen in the midst of many people, as a lion among the beasts of the forest, as a young lion among the flocks of sheep, who, if he go through, both treadeth down and teareth in pieces, and none can deliver. Well, see, this is another testimony to the fact that when you see him, you shall be changed, you shall be like him. You'll be like a lion, you'll have great strength. I do not have any evidence to make a case that we're going to be big like Nephilim. I don't think so at all. I think we'll be about this the same size. I don't think I'm wrong. I've considered that over the years. I know that's. Thy hand shall be lifted up upon thine adversaries, and all thy enemies shall be cut off. That's also going to happen in the next few weeks. And it shall come to pass in that day, saith Jehovah, that I will cut off thy horses out of the midst of thee, and I will destroy thy chariot, and I will cut off the cities of thy land, of thy Eretz, and throw down all thy strongholds. And I will cut off witchcrafts out of thy hand, and thou shalt have no more soothsayers. Thy graven images also will I cut off, and thy standing images out of the midst of thee. And thou shalt no more worship the work of thine hands, and I will pluck up thy groves of the midst of thee, so will I destroy thy cities. See, it appears to be pointed at Israel. Why would he destroy the cities? Well, he doesn't talk about the little towns and villages, he says the cities. First thing that should come to mind is the enemies of Israel with the rockets and the missiles will attack the cities. That's their primary goal. Okay, if they could reach them. So what are the cities? Well, Jerusalem appears to not suffer these attacks, which could be explained in the natural because the Muslim enemies don't want to hit the Dome of the Rock and the Al-Aqsa Mosque by mistake. Plus, there's many Muslims living in Jerusalem, the old city in different parts, so they're not interested in hitting that. If they did blow that up, they might suffer the wrath of the other Muslim countries coming after them violently. Okay? So, Netanya, Tel Aviv, Caesarea, Eilat maybe. There's Haifa. There's probably 10 big cities in Israel. Tiberias, maybe. It's between a village or a town and a city. It's got 40,000 people, but it could constitute as one of them. So will I destroy their cities. So the enemies destroy our cities, then they reap what they sow, and Jehovah destroys all their cities, all their nations, all their lands, but doesn't let them get to Jerusalem. And that's why it says, I will pour my spirit out on those in Jerusalem and the house of David. Of course, it might be we're forced to go live in Jerusalem. And I will execute vengeance in anger and fury upon the heathen, such as they have not heard. Well, there you have it. They're going to really suffer. But he's going to let them do this to the cities of Israel first. Then they reap what they sow, and they're going to have pretty bad destruction. Okay. Got more scriptures. Isaiah 6 verse 11, I believe. Then said I, Adonai, how long? And he answered, until the cities be wasted without inhabitant, and the houses without man, and the land be utterly desolate. And the Lord have removed men far away, and there be a great forsaking in the midst of the land. But yet in it shall be a tenth. And let's see what that word really is. That's three. Yes. That's what it says. And it shall return, and shall be eaten as a teal tree, and is an oak, whose substance is in them. My people's days shall be like a tree, when they cast their leaves. So the holy seed shall be the substance thereof. You see, that's who's left in Israel. The seed, the believers in Yeshua. The promises were made not the seeds of many, the seed of one, which is Yeshua. And those in Yeshua, Yeshua calls us brethren, so they apply to you. And that never happened before, so it's this for today. More verses. That's, if you could hear it, that's a Hezbollah attack. Jeremiah 4, verse 26. I beheld, and lo, the fruitful place was a wilderness, and all the cities thereof were broken down. All the cities were broken down. Thereof were broken down, and the presence of Jehovah, and by his fierce anger. Now, the presence of Jehovah. This is a gross intentional translation problem. The word is punim, the face of Jehovah. So what do we read? The sign of the Son of Man. He shall appear in the clouds, seated on the right hand of power. The right hand of power is Jehovah, his Father. And that's it. That's the punim, the face. His fierce anger with Israel. The Israelis that are doing these things. For thus hath Jehovah said, the whole land shall be desolate, yet will I not make a full end. For this shall the earth mourn, and the heaven above be black. Because I have spoken, I have purposed, and will not repent. Neither will I turn back from it. The whole city shall flee for the noise of the horsemen, and the bowmen they shall go into thickets and climb up upon the rocks. Every city shall be forsaken, and not a man dwell therein. So, see, these cities were built by the Satanists, doing business with other Satanists from the little Satan club, and they own the real estate and built the values up, and they got the stores and all that. It's all the Satan bots. That's where they go. The ultra-Orthodox have a city right outside of Tel Aviv, or actually it could be a section of Tel Aviv, or adjacent to Tel Aviv. I don't know what will happen to them yet, but I imagine a lot of them will be gone. And when thou art spoiled, what wilt thou do? Though thou closest thyself, you dress yourself with crimson, though thou deck thee with ornaments of gold, though thou rentest thy face with painting in vain, shall thou make myself fair. Thy lovers will despise thee, they will seek thy life. Thy lovers have all left you. Thy lovers will despise Israel and seek their life. The lovers have left us and will seek our life. You got it? Is it hard to tie this to America? No, not at all. Verse 31 of Jeremiah 4. For I have heard a voice as of a woman in travail, and the anguish as of her that bringeth her first child. The voice of the daughter of Zion, that bewail herself, that spreadeth her hands, saying, Woe is me, now for my soul is wearied because of murderers. You see, that's them crying out of fear and clutching their guts and their faces turning pale in Jeremiah 30. It's the birth pangs leading into the travail, the actual birth process. The water broke, the baby The cervix is dilated, the baby's crowning, the actual birth process. They get scared right up into it, and then the two witnesses burn their enemies up on the right hand and the left. But I believe they see the sign of the Son of Man first. Then he pours the Spirit out on them, and they see the sign of the Son of Man, and then the two witnesses burn them up. I expect that's the sequence. And the Israelites will fight. It says the feeble will fight like David, who killed Goliath and was a great warrior and killed the bear and the lion and all that. And the house of David will fight like the angel of the Lord, which is the glory God of Israel, Michael. And he killed 150,000 in one day. Now that doesn't mean you need to be the size of the Nephilim to do that. Not by might, not by power, but by my Spirit. Ezekiel 29:17. This is an interesting one. Especially concerning Egypt. And it came to pass in the 27th year, in the first month, in the first day of the month, the word of Jehovah came unto me, saying, Son of man, Nebuchadnezzar, now king of Babylon. Now remember in Jeremiah 50:51, in one passage he references the head of the United States government as this Nebuchadnezzar, not the old one, this one. Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babel, and the daughter of Babylon is also Babel. It doesn't say Babylon in any Hebrew manuscript, it's Babel. Caused his army to serve a great service against Tyrus. Every head was made bald, and every shoulder was peeled. Yet had he no wages nor his army for Tyrus, for the service that he had served against it. Therefore, thus saith Adonai Jehovah, behold, I will give the land of Egypt unto Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babel, and he shall take her multitude, and take her spoil, and take her prey, and shall be the wages for his army. I have given him. You know, I think this happened in the past. I don't think it's going to be anything to do with America. The land of Egypt for his labor. Wherefore, yeah, Nebuchadnezzar helped Israel. Well, they didn't help Israel, but I mean, you know, which he served against me, because they wrought for me, saith the Lord. In that day will I cause the horn of the house of Israel to butt forth, and I will give thee the opening of the mouth in the midst of them, and they shall know that I am the Lord. Well, this makes us think it's today. If it was Iran, it would say Assyria or something like that, or Persia or something. If it was Iraq, he would say like Nineveh or Babel. But could Iraq go after you? That doesn't sound likely. It sounds more like the head of the United States. It could be that this is who punishes Egypt in these times. I'm just saying this is impossible. I am not 100%. It looks like it could be a fit. Could be. Probably is. But that's not my focus point. I'm focusing on Israel right now. Now, I want to read Ezekiel 34 to you, but I'm going to start with a verse inside Ezekiel 34 to make the case of the cities being destroyed, okay? I will make with them a covenant of peace, of shalom. Yeshua is the peace offering. That's a lamb. The sin offering is a steer. They never say, behold the steer of God. It's, but to have peace with God, the sins have to be removed. That's a good way of understanding it, I suppose. And I will make with them a covenant, a brit of peace, of shalom, and will cause the evil beasts to cease out of the land. Well, the word for beasts here isn't exactly the word for beasts. It's chai, which has a. Let me check it in the Hebrew, because chayot means animals. Let me take a quick look at that. Hang on. See, I look in the Hebrew text, but we don't have beasts running around Israel. We don't have lions and tigers and jaguars and leopards and bobcats and, we don't have that stuff. We'll take a look in the Hebrew. If it says coyote, that's the word for animals, but it could still be referencing people. Yeah. No, it doesn't say coyote. I think it's referring to these terrorist type people that want to kill us, who they are, our neighbors, them, calling them beasts. That's what I think it's doing. Okay? So, I will make with them a brit, covenant, shalom, peace, and will cause the evil beasts to cease out of the land. That would be Haaretz, the land of Israel. And they shall dwell safely in the wilderness. The wilderness is Midbar, and God refers to the word Sion, means wilderness too. That's how he refers to the land now, and then pretty soon it'll look like the Garden of Eden, but not today. Out of the land, and they shall dwell safely in the wilderness and sleep in the woods. The word for sleep is yashin. Sleep is a reasonably decent meaning of that word. And woods is ya'ar, forest, bushes, things like that. Woods is pretty good. Woods or forest is what I would call it. I wouldn't call that jungle. I wouldn't call that desert. Woods or forest. Israel has a bunch of that. And she'll sleep in the woods. So why are we sleeping in the woods? Because the cities have been destroyed. You got another reason for it? If the cities weren't destroyed and 2/3 would cut off, there'd be so many empty apartments and houses that we'd be able to absorb people coming on the next Exodus to a pretty darn good extent. Plus the houses in the land of the enemy that we take over. Up about 150 miles in Lebanon, Gaza, which doesn't have houses anymore, and Syria and Jordan to some extent, and maybe Iraq too. So the cities get destroyed, theirs and ours. Theirs never get built up, ours do. Many foreigners come in here and work for us. As slaves, probably. Could be servants, probably slaves. And they'll rebuild the cities for us, along with us, I guess. So you got to put this into your doctrines. And you got to understand when you come here, what's going to happen now. The other side of this coin, as you could use as a figure of speech, is you're going to have that everlasting life. Are you going to have to sleep? I have a feeling no. Because it says that there'll be light from the glory of God of Israel in the temple, not New Jerusalem, the temple in Jerusalem day and night. And the gates will be open and won't be dark and stuff like that. So I think we don't sleep anymore. Those with everlasting life. We do eat. Are we going to get gas and upset stomachs? Probably if you eat stupid things. You know, go eat some boiled poison ivy and see what happens, you know. No, I wouldn't want to do that. You know, if you were going to sit down and normally, let's say, a big guy, you can knock off a 16-ounce T-bone and you try to do a 48-ounce T-bone in a contest with some other jerk because you're too excited at how young and everything you feel, I imagine you'd get bloated and probably not feel so great for a while. I think if you do stupid things, you will learn a lesson not to do stupid things again. But overall, I don't think you'll have a problem. Children of Israel were in Egypt. They got quail. They got all sorts of stuff mounted. You think God's not going to feed you? I'm telling you, we had a downpour in the early morning hours today, and it's supposed to rain later today. It don't happen in May. He's watering the garden for my people yet to come. I believe we're in a Jubilee year. So the land's going to bring forth food unto itself without us tilling and working the soil. The Sea of Galilee is way up there with water, high, high, high. All these people coming here are going to want to drink. You have everlasting life, are you going to still drink? I would give that at 99% or 100%. Yeah, you're going to drink. You're going to drink and you're going to eat. Are you going to belch and pass gas? I don't know. Depends what you eat, right? What do I know? I don't know. I guess so, but I don't know. Maybe your digestion system will be so good it won't matter. I don't know. Where are you going to find that? I mean, there's not such detail in the scriptures, you know. Are you going to be worrying about the sunburn? I doubt it. I don't think you'll have a sunburn problem with this new skin you got, this new body. I don't think so. Your old age, which is a disease that kills you, is going to go away. All the other stuff wrong with you will go away. Your feet, your ankles, your knees, your hips, your neck, your teeth, your eyes, your ears, blah, 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 your joints, whatever. Okay? Soon. Pretty soon. And then we sleep in the woods. So what can I tell you? Camping with Jehovah. What else? I don't have any other explanation. Is it worth it? Over here we're living in the woods, and over here we got eternal life, and you put them together in a sandwich. I think it's a delicious sandwich. I'd love to wolf that sandwich down. You're not going to be in the woods forever. We're going to rebuild the cities. The second Exodus will come. We'll have plenty of people. The nations will be destroyed, and they'll come here. They'll build for us, and they'll work our land for us. They'll feed our animals for us. They'll cook for us. They'll clean for us. All of this stuff. When we come up, we have a double portion, better than we ever had it before. And if you study the days of Solomon, silver was like, a copper penny. Gold was maybe like, silver or something like that. They were collecting chimps, I think, like monkeys. They call them apes, but nobody's gonna have a gorilla hanging around their house. They can pull your head off. Probably monkeys like Tarzan with cheetah, that size, maybe, 2.5 feet high or something like that. Probably what they had. Or maybe small monkeys. Once living in some crazy country, I had a monkey that was about that big, and not a nice pet. We gave him away. He was not a lot of fun. if you went out of the house and left him alone in his cage and you came home, he'd scream at you and pull your hair. I mean, he was not nice. If you did what he wanted, he was pretty nice. But it had a tremendous amount of energy. You wanted constant attention. I do think if you let him loose in the house, which you'd have to be an idiot to do, and someone broke into your house, this monkey would most definitely have gone after them. And he could bite and draw blood. We saw him do that too on somebody that was feeding him on behalf. So he, you know, a chimp you could do that with too. I mean, the chimp, you get an aggressive chimp and someone comes in the house. I mean, these things are strong. I'll bet you a chimp could press a lot of weight, you know. They hang from trees with one arm and they could stay there a long time. You try that. See how long you can hang with a tree, not a chinning bar, a tree with one, you know. But anyway, they had these monkeys in Solomon's time. They had all kinds of riches, but we're going to get a double portion, much more than that. Much more than that. So we got to go play Boy Scout for a little while. Big deal. Who cares? You'll be so happy. The gifts of the Spirit will be flowing out of you and everything else. You'll be so happy you won't care. You really won't care. And we'll be eating organic food, right? Not going to be eating the supermarket garbage with the poisons and the GMO and all that nonsense. So you'll be, everything will be working right. You're not going to get sick. You know, you'll get cold, but you're not going to get a cold with pneumonia from it, but you'll get cold. Cold is one thing, sick is something else, okay? Sick comes from sin, by the way. That's the scriptures. I've done Bible studies on that a few times. Sick doesn't come from cold. Now, if you're really cold, like Antarctica, and you're ill prepared, you can get frozen to death, I suppose. But that would probably be most unlikely to happen to us with a new body. I don't think we'd want to provoke things and go down to Antarctica and go swimming in the water to see what happens. You know, I don't know what would happen. I wouldn't really want to find out. But I don't think the heat will bother you that much. You might get worn out from the heat, or you might just not like it and want to go lay in the shade, you know. I think we could forget the internet, probably forget cars, probably forget air conditioning and other things. But if he controls the weather nicely, what's the difference? It's better than air conditioning. Air conditioning is unpleasant to me. It's more pleasant than sweating in 103-degree weather, but it's not, you know, I like the fresh air. You sleep under the stars. What's the big deal? And it's not forever. I don't know how long it'll be, but I don't think it's be that long. We see something like this again in Ezekiel 34:14. So I just want to make you aware that it will happen. I will feed thee in a good pasture. Now, that's Jehovah promising to feed us, so we're going to eat. And upon the high mountains of Israel shall their fold be. He calls us sheep. That's where we'll be hanging out on the high mountains. There's no big city except maybe Safed on mountains in Israel. I mean, Jerusalem is sort of on a mountain, but I don't think it meets the test. It says high mountains. I don't think we really have. What's this thing doing? It's going nuts. I don't think we really have any cities on mountains. And it goes on in verse 15, I will feed my flock and I will cause them to lie down, saith Adonai Jehovah, lie down. And I will seek that which was lost and bring that which was driven away, and will bind up that which was broken, and will strengthen, chazak, strengthen that which was sick, but I will destroy the fat and the strong, the millionaires, the rich fat cats, the Satan bots. I will feed them with judgment. He feeds us with food, and they get judged for what they've done. As for you, O my flock, saith Adonai Yehovah, behold, I will judge between cattle and cattle, between the rams and the he-goats. Seemeth it a small thing unto you that eateth up the good pasture, but you must tread down with your feet the residue of your pasture. Okay, I'm going to take a quick break and come back with some more stuff for you, okay? Sit tight. You can put questions in the chat if you like. All right. I'm going to change topics. This is for those of you that have been following me for a while, and maybe those of you that recently joined. This is Mark 16, verse 20. This is quite serious, what I'm going to do now. Quite serious. And brace yourself, okay? And they went forth and preached everywhere, the Lord working with them, and confirmed the word with signs following. God is not going to give you the signs and wonders unless you have the true gospel, the real word, not the church crap, okay? You got that. Maybe there's things we don't know, but the stuff we do know seems to be correct at this point. And they went forth and preached everywhere, Jehovah working with them and confirming the word with signs following. You'll be preaching to an evil and wicked generation all over the world, probably during the second Exodus, when you're in Israel, who knows? Learning the word is like going in the army, God's spiritual army, basic training. That's where it starts. And you're probably about done with basic training. Maybe there's more coming, I'm not sure. The way the Lord works with you with signs following, the healing, raising the dead, all kinds of things. To whom much is given, much is required. Well, much has been given to you, and it's been given to you first, to the Jew first, then the Greek or the Goyim. So now tell me how you're not a Jew. I don't get it. I don't have an explanation for that other than you're part of Israel. This army is not like a regular army. We slay with the word. The word is a sword. The double-edged sword coming out of Yeshua's mouth is the word. The word will judge you in that day. Moses' law will judge you in that day. If the Lord be with you, who can be against you? If the Lord be for you, who can be against you? Well, we'll fight like an army, but we're also going to slay with the word of the Lord. Not by might, not by power, but by His Spirit. You will see things and do things that are going to amaze you. Yeshua said, greater works than these you shall do. And Jehovah's going to do greater works than I think He ever did previous to this. I said previous, not after this, previous. And you're going to rack up great rewards. You're going to be like a good tree bearing timely fruit, good fruit. And you're going to build up rewards in heaven where the thief doesn't steal and the moth and the mildew don't rot it. You'll be children of your Father Jehovah, and you'll be fighting for His cause and doing His will. You need not worry. There is no greater honor anywhere, at any time, ever in time, greater than working in God's army for Jehovah and Yeshua HaMashiach. There's no greater honor that can be found. It just doesn't exist. The time's at hand, so lift up your head. Your redemption draweth nigh. I'm out.